NHL season actually began last week in Prague, Czechia, with the Devils beating the Sabres twice. So New Jersey off to a great start. Buffalo not so much. And we got the season proper underway last night. The Utah Hockey Club on the honestly, other than the Hurricanes, my favorite team name in the entire sport. They won their opener. Bizarre start for Florida and Boston, or at least a bizarre start for Boston, to allow 4 first-period goals in a 6-4 Florida win.
You know who scored the first goal, too, for the Blackhawks against that Utah game?
Was it Teuvo Teravainen?
It was.
It was. We missed Teuvo already to a certain extent. Greg Wyshynski, national NHL writer for ESPN, podcast host, the pride of Matawan, New Jersey, joins us on the Adam Gold Show. How are you, sir? Welcome back to the season.
Well, also New York Mets fan, so doing really well, and New York Jets fan and not doing as well.
See, I wasn't sure if you were a Jets fan or not. So I apologize for that. You could be where I used to be a Jets fan, and have now completely divorced myself from the situation. So I look at it really as a traveling circus. But I am a Mets fan.
It's funny you should say that, because I've often talked about my Jets fandom as, like, if I ever moved permanently to a place with an NFL team, like, could I make the transition? Could I separate myself from this decades-long pain and just root for another team? And the answer I always come back to is no, because at this point, I'm a Cubs fan, I'm a Red Sox fan, before the glory. Like,
right.
I need to still be engaged with this misery if and when they ever do win, because then it's going to be so cathartic. I think if they ever won the Super Bowl, I could stop being a Jets fan.
Okay.
Like, I'd be free of the curse.
Right.
but I can't now. I've dedicated so much of my life to following this disgusting franchise.
Yep.
That I can't let it go.
It would be a badge of honor if they ever did something correct. But I actually started losing them when they decided that Rex Ryan was no longer good for them. He's actually the best coach they have had other than the 3 years of Bill Parcells.
Yeah.
Since I have been aware of being a Jets fan. I loved the Rex Ryan era. Let's not talk about the Jets. Let me demand a response from you, Greg Wyshynski, who picked the Hurricanes to miss the playoffs. These are the analytics darlings of the NHL. They were before Rod Brind'amour, the analytics darlings. They're still the analytics darlings. The analytics sites all think the Hurricanes are going to be great. I'm not with you. I don't think they'll miss the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be great. I do think they're a playoff team. What brought you to ending the 6-year streak?
Well, first of all, it's interesting that you refer to them as an analytics darling before Rob Brind'amour arrived, because while that's true, they also missed the playoffs every season.
Yes, Bill Peters had something to do with that.
Yeah, well, and I would say also there was another common factor in that, as our friends in Seattle are discovering currently. Wow. I just think at some point attrition finds every team in this league, and attrition of the roster, that is. And so when you lose Pesci and you lose Shea and you lose Teravainen, you don't only just lose players that certainly contributed in a pretty significant way to that playoff streak, but you also lose a lot of institutional knowledge. Mm-hmm. You lose a lot of character. Like, there's a lot that walked out the door on top of other losses over the years. So I made that pick in a sense because. One, because I needed to find a way to get some other teams in the playoff picture that I thought were going to make it, but also because I kind of felt if they were going to take a step back, it would probably be this year. They have a very robust prospect pipeline that can fill in some of these holes that are maybe a little bit further away, and it just kind of almost felt like a transitionary year. Again, Brind'amour has shown himself to be an extremely good regular season coach, and the system that he plays is very sturdy, insofar as they've been comfortably in a playoff berth during his time there. But with the improvement in the division, with the improvement in the conference, and with the diminishing returns on the roster, I don't know. I have a feeling it could have maybe a little bit of a down year for them.
Oh, It will certainly be a drop back. It is funny. Vegas has the over-under point total at 101.5. And I find that if the Hurricanes get 98 points, they're in the playoffs. I think they're going to be comfortably in the playoffs at 98 points. It might be a wild card situation, but I think at if Vegas is even close to right, the Hurricanes are a playoff team. What you say, I think, is 100% true. The drop-off, I talked about this before. There are people who think there won't be a drop-off or won't be a significant drop-off. I saw somebody tell me that the Hurricanes would be better defensively, and I'm blown away by anybody thinking that based on what Brady Shea and Brett Pesce did as a duo over the last 3 full seasons. But I do think that if things go well, the drop-off won't be dramatic because Jalen Chatfield and Dmitry Orlov in the playoffs were actually Carolina's best defensive pairing. So I think they could elevate and at least mitigate that loss. But, I mean, the loss, I think it hinges on whether or not Pyotr Kochetkov can be a number 1 goalie.
Yeah. And also the health of his tandem partner, too, I think is probably the question mark there, too. Again, there's 2 teams in this conference where because of their coach, you kind of feel like there's a certain plug-and-play aspect to the roster. And one of them is Boston, where that Jim Montgomery system, they believe they can throw any number of guys onto that blue line, or in particular, allow them to trade Linus Ullmark and bring in Jonas Korpisalo. Didn't look good last night, but they kind of feel like the system is so sturdy that they can be okay no matter what the roster looks like. And I feel like brind'amour is the same way. You know what you're going to get something out of the top line. You're hoping that you can get something out of the second line.
Yeah.
You know the checking line is going to be good. I mean, and then you hope that the blue line is the kind of thing where the system is so good that you can have, Sean Walker come in and all of a sudden he's Brett Pesce. So like there is a template and there is reason to believe that I'm wrong on this. But I just think at some point you look at this roster and again the Devils are going to make a leap. The Islanders, I think, with a full year of Patrick Waugh are going to be quite good. The Flyers are going to be better. The Penguins are going to be better. The Capitals were a playoff team last year. And then you look at the other division in the conference, and all those teams are getting better too. So I don't think the freebie points are there unless you're a real good team. And I do wonder if the Hurricanes might just miss the cut by a little bit.
All right, so I want to get into one of the things you said was that the division got better and maybe the conference got better. 2 teams that you have in the playoffs, I think Carolina will be better than. I'm not saying that other teams won't step up because I actually think that there's a chance that Detroit is significantly better than they were a year ago. And I know a lot is expected for some reason of Washington to be better, but I don't see the Islanders being better. I see them being older. They played better under Patrick Waugh, and I thought the Hurricanes were significantly better than them in the playoffs. Yes, different Hurricanes team to a certain extent anyway. And I think Buffalo was so disappointing to me in those 2 games in Czechia. I'm not sure they're ready as a group to take that step. Is any of that fair?
The Islanders one, I don't know. I think they could be a lot better than people think they are. I think that roster has played together for quite a while. The fact that they've got Horvat and Barzal on the same line with Duclair, that line could carry them. And I do think that they were able to excel last year without having Ilya Sorokin really on his game. He had back surgery. He wasn't himself. I think giving him time to heal up, he'll be better, and I think the team overall will be better. I already have buyer's remorse on Buffalo. I mean, of course I do. I mean, I'm really hoping the first 2 games of this season are the Devils are that good and not the Sabres are that bad, but it could be the Sabres that bad. There's one path for them to make the playoffs, which is that they have to kind of be incrementally better defensively than they were last season as a team. And they were kind of a sneaky, okay defensive team in front of okay goaltending. But what they really have to do is put the pedal down and have this team look a lot like Lindy Ruff's Devils teams, where they just are flying around aggressive, getting goals from throughout the lineup, because there's a lot of offense that's yet to be unlocked on that roster. I thought Don Granato did a good job as head coach, but he didn't do a very good job last year maximizing their offensive potential. Mm-hmm. They've got so much weaponry that I do think that they can score their way to the playoffs, but But like you said, that was a pretty auspicious start.
Well, I
for
think
Buffalo.
what you said about that, I actually think might be true. The Devils, I think, have one of the best rosters. I don't know, maybe the best roster not named Florida in the East. My question about both the Devils and the Sabres is really behind the bench. I look, I think Sheldon Keefe is okay. I don't think he distinguished himself in Toronto as being a great coach, and I was frankly surprised that that's where the Devils went to get their next coach. But maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not a Sheldon Keefe guy, and I think the sell-by date is long ago on Lindy Ruff. So I don't get either of those. I have, by the way, great affection for Kevin Adams, Buffalo's GM. So I'm gonna, to me, he's one of the smartest people I know about the sport. So maybe he knows. I hope he knows better than I for his stake. I didn't understand either of those hires.
Well, I'm sure on the latter hire with Buffalo, there's a certain amount of familiarity there, and by that I mean, Terry Pegula is an old Sabres fan,
right,
and he owns the team, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's like, Lindy Ruff's available? I know that name. I mean, for God's sakes, the last time they made the playoffs, Lindy Ruff was the coach.
Yep.
So why not run it back? I have a big feature running on Keefe tomorrow ahead of the Devils' home opener against the Leafs, in fact. And I think he's a little bit better than you give him credit for, and I think he's actually a really good fit for what this roster needed, which was somebody to come in and give them a bit of defensive structure, which they completely lacked last year. And I think that his Leafs teams at 5-on-5 were always pretty good defensively. But more than anything else, I think he's gained a lot of experience and learned a lot of lessons from being in that Toronto situation, especially when it comes to managing the egos of a young core. He came in when, Matthews was 22, Marner was 22, Nylander was 23. He comes into Jersey. Hughes is 23. His brother is, 20-something. Even Hischier and Bratt, two of the older players in that core, are 26. Yeah. So all those lessons he learned, all that experience he gained, managing a young core in Toronto and helping them grow. I mean, Austin Matthews is now the captain of that team because of the maturity he showed while Keefe was the coach. I think will be applied to New Jersey, which was a place that certainly needed to kind of get its culture back on track after things really fell apart last year.
Greg Wyshynski, ESPN, NHL national writer, Mets fan, suffering Jets fan. Hopefully the Mets will mitigate the Jets' suffrage, and we can put this to bed tonight, because I frankly don't want to have one eye on the Hurricanes and the Lightning on Friday night and the other eye on the score of what's going on in Philadelphia between New York and the Phillies. I'll let you go there. I appreciate your time. I'll see you soon, I would imagine, at a game, but we'll talk again. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Greg Wyshynski.